Good afternoon, everybody. Today's class revolves around what we call business etiquette. Now, of course, etiquette is a word borrowed from French language, but we'll understand at some point why. Now, when we say a business etiquette is an ethical, if you want, and socially acceptable behavior regarding professional practice or action among the members of a profession in their dealings with each other, the way they deal with each other. So the etiquette is something which is generally agreed to as acceptable, feasible. Of course, during or a professional practice. Now, but etiquette isn't recognized as a one uniform set of standards around the globe. The etiquette changes, and the connotation, of course, the connotations of the etiquette change from one country to another. And it is, in the business context, it is very important to be aware of differences when you move from one context to another, from one country to another. For example, a hand gesture in one country may have the exact opposite meaning in another culture. So why are global etiquette and cultural differences important to us? I mean, to people involved in business practices. Now, as global business continues to expand, and the critical element of a successful business outcome may be the appreciation and respect for cultural differences. Of course, you want to do business, but you don't want to offend your business partners. You will need to utilize your knowledge of cultural diversity and intercultural communication during your international travels and overseas assignments. And even when people come to your country, you still have to observe those details. Now, let's see how much you know. I'll ask you questions, and then, of course, I'll answer the questions for you. So, in all but one of the following countries, it is expected that you bring a gift to a business meeting. So, in which country is it not expected? Now, let me give you the countries. You have China, you have Japan, you have Czech Republic, Denmark, and Bolivia. Now, which one people don't expect you? Which one of these 5 countries you're not expected to bring a gift to a business meeting? It's Denmark. Was that your answer? Okay. In Saudi Arabia, for example, which is considered a popular gesture of friendship between men? Is it a high five? Give me 5. Is it holding hands while walking? Is it a handshake? Is it winking? Or is it a hug or a kiss on the cheek? Now, which of these is a sign of a popular gesture of friendship between men in Saudi Arabia? A hug? No. Of course, it's holding hands while walking. In Great Britain, tapping your nose indicates something is, I'll give you the list and you pick one. Confidential, smelly, inappropriate, very important, or incredibly boring. Now, which connotation is the right one for when tapping your nose? Confidential, of course. Which of the following is associated with death and should not be given as gifts in the Chinese culture? So, would that be clocks, straw sandals, a handkerchief, a stalk or a crane, or all of the above? Well, so you're surprised. All of the above are signs of course, associated with death. And of course, you make sure if you have some business to do in China, you don't bring these as gifts. Now, when treating a client to a business meal in China, what would the most appropriate strategy or tipping strategy be? So how much would you give as a tip? 15%? The more the better? 20%? or no tip at all, or maybe you give 50%. I don't know. I guess no tip at all is the right answer. So that's the way it is in the Chinese context. Now, when doing business in countries like Iran, now a woman should cover what? Mouth, feet, eyes, arms and legs, arms, legs, and hair. Well, actually it's arms, legs, and hair. And of course you want to be aware of these idiosyncrasies. Now, etiquette in France, we start with France. Why? Because, of course, of the origin of the word itself. Now, let's learn a little about etiquette in the French context, because the English word etiquette comes from the French word etiquette, which means the social etiquette or the professional protocol. Now, of course, France is the largest Western European country, and the Americans partake in many business deals with the French. Now, as far as the French heritage and culture, of course, France is known as a world center for culture, and the French are very proud of their long history and of their roles in world affairs. They go to great lengths to protect and maintain their culture. For example, we have l'Académie Française, which was established in 1600s, to be the official authority of the French language. Now, and the language itself is the official, French is the official language, and if you don't speak French, it is very important that you apologize for your lack of knowledge. This is very important when doing business with people in France. However, most individuals in business, of course, speak English. Now, communication, the French appreciate conversation as an art form. They frequently interrupt each other, not to be rude, but because argument is considered entertaining. Of course, they complain that Americans are often lecturing rather than conversing. They don't converse, they lecture. No, so you want to be sensitive, of course, to the volume of your voice. You don't want to be too loud, because French eye contact is frequent and intense. Do not be intimidated, because in other cultures, this intense eye contact may be an act of intimidation, and it may not be appreciated by some people in any other cultural context. Now, appearance. The French are very conscientious of their appearance. One should dress in well-tailored conservative attire. Dark colors, patterned fabrics are preferred. Bright colors and glittered jewelry should be avoided. You don't want to wear flashy colors and bright ties and stuff, because the French men do not loosen their ties or take off their jackets. Such behavior is considered unprofessional. So the jacket and the tie are maintained from the beginning until the end of meetings. Now, other important French cultural trends. Punctuality is treated casually. French meals are to be enjoyed, not rushed through. So except for a lunch or a dinner to last anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. Handshakes are brief. We're talking about, of course, body language and the use of hands. So handshakes are brief and are accompanied by distinct eye contact. Well, yes, they aren't as firm as the Americans would use them. You always shake upon meeting and leaving. Education is very highly valued in France. Giving or gift giving as a business meeting is up to the foreign's discretion. However, suggested gifts are books and music, as they, of course, the French demonstrate interest in intellectual pursuits. Now, if you're in countries like Brazil, appearances. Now, Brazilians pride themselves on their attire, the way they are dressed. 3-piece suit means executive, whereas 2-piece suits are associated with office workers. Women are to dress conservative, elegant and feminine suits and dresses. Always have manicured nails. They avoid wearing the combination of green and yellow in any fashion, simply because those happen to be the colors of the Brazilian flag. Now, when it comes to behavior, of course, the way you greet. Men shake hands in Brazil and keep eye contact. Friends will give hugs and slap each other on the back. Women kiss each other on the cheeks, starting from left and alternate. If a woman wishes to shake hands with a man, she must extend her hand first. The OK symbol is a rude gesture and should never be used in Brazil. Now, to express appreciation, one may pinch, the earlobe and thumb and forefinger. To say good luck, one uses the gesture, the fig. Now, gift giving. When it comes to gift giving, gifts are not required at the first business meeting. Instead, you buy lunch or dinner. Never give purple flowers. You know why? Because they are used extensively at funerals when someone dies. And we're here to do business, okay? So gifts are opened when received. When dining, midday is the main time for a meal, unless it is a formal entertainment. If it is a dinner invitation, arrive 30 minutes late. If it is a large party, arrive 1 hour late. So the notion of punctuality is not here. Dress to impress. Casual clothing is considered and more formal in Brazil than in other countries. Now, the business etiquettes. You never start into business discussions before the host does. Meetings begin with casual chat. One may talk about soccer, family, children. Don't bring up the topics, things like Argentina, politics, poverty, religion, or the rainforest. These are very, so the Brazilians are very sensitive to those issues. Now, they prefer face-to-face meetings, and of course communication is informal. Now, it is acceptable to interrupt someone who is speaking, but never rush the relationship building time. Expect a great time reviewing details. Use local lawyers and accountants. They know the business. They know the idiosyncrasies of business practices in that country. And of course, businesses or business meetings may be scheduled at least or at last minute, but try to schedule 2 or 3 weeks in advance. I mean, the more you advance your scheduling, the better. For example, in places like Sao Paulo, arrive on time for meetings. Whereas in Rio and some other cities, it is acceptable to arrive a few minutes late, but don't appear impatient if kept waiting. Right, now let's go to India. Now, appearances in India, formal business, so we expect you to dress in a suit and a tie. Unlike the French, so the Indians would easily, of course, remove jackets in the summer. Women, of course, have to dress in conservative, pants and pantsuits and dresses. Casual business. I mean, we move from a formal context to a casual context. Of course, men would maybe clad in short-sleeved shirts and long pants. Shorts only when exercising, of course. You never go to a business meeting if it is casual in shorts. Women must keep upper arms, chest, back, and legs covered at all times. Okay? So the use of leather products may be offensive, and of course you know why, because that's for religion reasons. We're talking about how sacred some cows are for some people in India. Now, behavior in India. You never touch someone else's head. The head is considered the seat of the soul. That sounds a little bit funny, but that's the way it is. Be careful with your feet. Feet are considered unclean. Never point your feet at a person. If your shoes or feet touch another person, apologize. That's what happens in India. Now, if you receive a wrapped gift, set it aside until the giver leaves. Gifts are not open in the presence of the giver, unlike what happens in the Brazilian context, where gifts are open in the presence of the giver. Now, business lunches are more popular than dinners. Keep in mind, Hindus do not eat beef and Muslims do not eat pork. This is quite interesting. Now, the official languages are, of course, in India, the official languages are English and Hindi, and English is widely used in business, politics, and education. And do not thank your hosts at the end of a meal. Thank you is considered a form of payment and insults your hosts. Now, when it comes to words like no, no is considered particularly harsh in India. Refusing a request in a more evasive manner is both common and polite. Never directly refuse an invitation. Instead, use non-verbal cues, NVCs, and indirect communication to voice your disagreement. Now, Indian working practices. The Indians appreciate punctuality, but may not reciprocate it. Now, in this case, you have to be flexible. Make business appointments in the late morning or early afternoon, ideally between the hours of 11 and 4 p.m. Deadlines should not be rushed. Making decisions is often a slow and thoughtful process in Indian culture. So showing impatience is seen as rude. Showing impatience is, of course, you have to watch. It may develop a rude and disrespectful interpretation. Now, the things you're supposed to do and the things you're not supposed to do. Do wait for a female business colleague to initiate the greeting. Men do not generally shake hands with women out of respect. Now, you may use, of course, titles whenever possible, such as professor, doctor. If the person doesn't have an official title, use Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, and, of course, their last name. But don't refuse any food or drink offered to you during business meetings, because that may be, of course, understood as a lack of respect to one's culture. Now, in Japan, of course, appearances. You dress to kill. It is important to dress to impress. So men should, of course, wear dark conservative attire, business suits. Women should dress conservatively. And of course, this is culture bound. It's the culture which is behind this type of choice. So you minimize jewelry items and high heels. So it's preferable to wear low heels. No pants. The Japanese men find it offensive, for women to wear pants. So they would use dresses, skirts, a little bit long skirts. Now, things you're supposed to do and you're not supposed to do in Japan. Of course, you want to avoid the OK sign. The OK sign, again, is not something appreciated in this culture. Don't point to people. And don't blow your nose in public. That's not, in an American context or somewhere in Europe, that wouldn't be a big hassle. Whereas in Japan, that's not, it's an act of disrespect to the people you're with. Don't pour your own drink. It's a sign of pure selfishness. Okay? Do come to an event fashionably late when invited, but don't touch someone of the opposite sex in public. You see, if you don't touch women, you don't expect a woman to touch a man and a man to touch a woman. So we keep the haptic context to a minimum. Now, communication. A bow is a form of, it's quite a common gesture when meeting people. So you may receive a handshake, but a bow would be more appropriate. You also want to complete a Meisha exchange process before business meeting can start. Now, smiles can express either joy or pleasure. Be careful. So allow host to sit in silence if need be, because the Japanese prefer not to use the word no. And thank you very much indeed.